Let me introduce Chala, a speaker from Goodgame Studios, and as I mentioned, he's here for the first time. Have you been to Russia before?
Nope.
Okay, let's exchange the microphones. That's an old Russian tradition here.
Oh, okay, this one is way better.
Yeah, I want people to hear you. So today we decided to talk about licensing, and Chala is an expert, I guess. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, about the company, and why you happen to be an expert in licensing?
Hi, I'm Caglar, and I'm working with Goodgame Studios now more than 5 years. Actually, I started my career in gaming at Goodgame. I was responsible back then for all publishing our web games on global level. So I helped the company to grow in distributing our games globally. Then in 2013 we start publishing also our most successful web title in mobile. It's called Empire. Then the mobile version is called Empire 4 Kingdoms. The game has reached now more than 300 million gross revenues USD and more than 70 million registrations or installs on mobile. Why I'm an expert? I mean, as you know, the gaming industry is changing constantly and constantly facing issues, problems, and at the same time finding new opportunities. And I'm doing this since 5 years now. So I think...
So the first question would be what is licensing? What's the topic of this panel discussion? Because I think not all the people understand what it is exactly about. So what do you mean when you speak about licensing?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm expert in licensing because usually Goodgame Studios, we always develop and publish our own titles. So we never published games what we didn't develop ourselves. But it is something what we definitely considered in the past, and we are constantly looking for licensing and publishing. But it's really difficult to find the right titles with the right team, and beside that, with the good expectation from both sides.
Could you please tell us about give us successful examples of how other companies maybe work with that and what turned out?
Yeah, I mean, what is really, really important before you publish or license a game is looking into the meta gameplay and try to figure out, is this game really scalable? So scalability is the key word, I would say. So if a game is not scalable, maybe the game mechanics are not that good, or the balancing wasn't that good, or even the code is not that good. I mean, late gameplay, to scale a game, late gameplay is really, really important, and that's why you need to have a solid code to add new content to the game, so to scale the late gameplay.
All right. Does a great IP necessarily means a great game?
Yeah, this is a good question. I mean,
that's your favorite, I know.
A lot of people think if you have a really bad game and you have a great IP, that makes it successful, and this is 100% not true, because you need to have a great solid game, and then you can add an IP on it, just to reduce somehow your CPI costs, because you can then get more organic users, and that means you can reach out to a fan base of the IP, for instance.
All right, but do you think it's even possible to get a licensor to sign with you if you have a bad game?
I mean,
what is bad game anyway?
I mean, if you have a great game, and the most important thing for us would be we would test the game, of course, and then we would make a small marketing test to find out is the game really scalable. I mean, this is really, really important, because it doesn't make sense if you have a game what you can't scale, and a marketing test on a low scale can show you what the potential of a game is.
What's the process? For example, let's say I'm a developer. I'm considering different genres, different gameplays, different IPs. And what should I do if I think licensing is a good way for me? Where do I start? Should I first, I don't know, pick a brand I like and then find a company, or start with the network I can get access to, and only then think about exact IPs?
The most important thing is you need to have the game. So when you have the game and then you think...
So the game is first?
Sorry?
The game is first?
Yes, that's definitely. The game is first, because then if you have the game first, then you have better negotiation opportunities with the IP holders. Then you can show them your game is solid, your game works well, you can scale it even without the IP, but the IP might help you in scaling faster.
So the game should not only exist, but it can be launched as well, right?
Yeah, soft launched.
Soft launch.
Yeah, usually soft launch, not a global launched game.
But don't you think it might take a lot of efforts to remake all the, I don't know, like characters or something to fit the IP? Maybe, could it be a way that you, I don't know, used IP characters and stuff, and then, but
sure.
You can?
You can, as long as you didn't launch it globally, you just produce something to prove that you did a solid job. It's definitely doable. I mean, this is what Remote Control, the company, they did with Angry Birds Epic. So they produced the Angry Birds Epic game with all the characters from Angry Birds, and then they showed it to Rovio, and then they said, okay, we would like to work with you guys.
But then, it would increase the risk. So, for example, you spend all the time and money, and then you have a game, and you show it to the IP owner, and he says, no, I don't like it. Go. And then you can't even launch it.
So that's why it makes sense to develop the game first for yourself. I mean, like, you don't want to go with IP, but then you find out, like, the game could work with Game of Thrones, for instance. Then like Empire for Kingdoms could name totally different. We can Game of Thrones, So after a game is global soft launched and you see that the game has potential, then you should go out, because then you have better opportunities to negotiate better terms and conditions for yourself.
Where to find IP owners? Should you go, to LA, or I don't know, like how do you start?
Can I say go to E3 now here, because it's at the same time? It doesn't. It's not that good, right?
No, never heard of that conference. Sorry, White Nights only. No, but seriously, even if you go there, if you're let's say, a humble developer, how can you imagine approaching those guys? Where you find them? They're like, E3 is huge. What are you going to do there?
Honestly, LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the key.
Do they reply?
Yeah, they do. If you show that you have a solid team, you have to have the right pitch deck, right? If your pitch deck looks good and you have a great team and the game you develop looks solid and you have some KPIs, people always like to discuss. If you look at Fox, for instance,
they are pretty reachable right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Sony is now also opening their doors more and more. So I never saw them in any events, but these days you meet them everywhere.
Well, yeah, we actually had Warner Brothers speaking at the White Nights a year ago, and there is a big chance that Lionsgate is going to come. So yeah, that might be a way to approach. Yeah. All right. Do you think they would consider games that are in beta?
Sorry?
Do you think they will consider games that are in beta, not launched yet, not soft launched?
Yeah. The real most important thing is that also the game, what you are planning to launch, fits to the IP. You cannot. This is what Vuga did. They made the Match 3 game with Futurama.
Yeah.
It was not...
Is it successful, by the way?
No.
Exactly.
So, and the reason is because the Futurama fan base that doesn't fit with Match 3, because Match 3 is more...
I'm a fan.
Fan of the game or of Match 3?
Fan of Futurama, and I'm a Match 3 player, but I haven't tried it because I love the cartoon. I like...
Yeah, okay. That was luck, because on a scalable version, it didn't work out, really.
Does a game based on some famous IP reduce the risk of, not risk, but the cost of marketing and installs or something? Or, I don't know, like Apple, Google would more likely feature such a game? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And this is the reason, I mean, when we look at Scopely, for instance, I mean, before they published the game with the Walking Dead IP, I heard from many people, and me actually too, I never heard about Scopely. So after they used the IP, they got this recognition from the industry, and Apple featured them, Google featured them, so they brought them a lot of organic or featured traffic. So and at the same time, it reduces your CPI costs, because usually when you buy on CPI, it's usually at the same time CPC. So for or in the old language web CPM, and if people know the brand, they are more likely to download and try at least. So that's why IPs can also reduce your your CPI costs.
But then let's talk about the contract that you can get. So, for example, if you decide to go for an IP, you sign a contract with licensor, and then you have to share revenue. Mm-hmm. And so what's a standard share revenue on such contracts? And isn't it easier to just, clone it, like not clone, but make something very similar to the IP?
It really depends on your approach, what you want to reach with this. I mean, for instance, as I said, I didn't know Scopely before, but after they used the Walking Dead IP, it was also easy for them to get investments. So it really depends on your approach. When your approach is you want to make money with an IP, then I would say, then create your own IP. Makes more sense. But if you want to create buzz and you want to get recognition within the industry, just to pave the way for your new upcoming titles, then go for it. So it's really the thing. I mean, we as Goodgame, and this is something we definitely looked into during the last 1.5 years, constantly into shall we do it, shall we not do it. But the calculations, what we did, always proved us don't go for IPs. Because creating your own IP makes much more sense. Right now, we are about to about to soft launch a game called Millennium Wars. Since Millennium Wars didn't have that great CPI conversions, so we took Empire Millennium Wars. So since Empire, our own brand, is such a big IP, so people convert easier to the game. So, and that reduces our CPI costs massively. So, and this is something you need to know for yourself what you want to do. But if you're a small company and you're out there for several years, you're making solid revenues, you're happy with what you're earning, but you want to make the next big step, then you might go for an IP game. So then, create more buzz, people talk about you,
All right. So what's the standard share revenue for such contracts?
There's no standard revenue share, to be honest.
At least, does a developer at least get more than a licensor, an IP owner?
I would say yes. So because you're doing all the work, but it really depends. For instance, when you look at Marvel, there are how many Marvel games out there? So a lot. If you want to ask Marvel for an exclusive deal, you can't pay it. So that's why, that's why you're getting a bit higher share, but it's non-exclusive, and Marvel can give their IP to anyone else too. So, but this is also the next question, I would say. It's really tough if you are not owning the IP exclusively, non-exclusive, and then imagine you start doing TV campaigns for Walking Dead, your version, and I am benefiting from it. So how can you handle that?
Yeah.
So
that's tricky.
It is.
But then again, as I usually say, that 0% from 100% from zero revenue is still nothing, right? Sometimes it's better to have even like 10 or 20%, but from a lot of money.
Exactly.
Right?
So, but Yeah, this is the truth.
What do licensors try to add to the content which is super bad for developers? Are there some tricky moments that developers should be aware of?
There are many things, and usually doesn't matter what you want to do in the game, you need to ask for permission. So for instance, imagine Google or Apple is calling you and telling you, hey, next week or in 1 month, we have a big event in the Google Play Store, iOS Store, and we would like to feature you. Can you make an event based on this or that? So let's say a Christmas event, and you don't have it. And then you have to ask for permission to create a Christmas event, and they have to have a look at it, and then that might take like over 3 months. And that's really tough if you have these kind of things written in the contract. And if the IP is a big IP, you get these kind of things written in the contract.
Yeah, I was just a couple months ago, I was at this conference in Berkeley in California, and there were guys who do this licensing on the Disney part. And we had this conversation, and people said like, there was a developer, he's like, should we try to make a deal with Disney on their IP? And like, there was a guy who was like, if you want an honest advice, don't do that. Because you will be just, you will be surprised how much of all the, you will have to consult about every tiny detail.
Yes.
And it will make you crazy, because instead of making a game, you will be discussing every little thing, and you won't be able to finish the game. You won't be able to launch it because it will make you crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you even have to send them business case why you want to do this. And I also heard from publishers or IP owners of Marvel that Marvel says, this is not Marvel Blue. Change the color. It's not, it's not our Marvel Blue. So it's like minor things you're discussing. I mean, when I look at our company at the moment, if we decide to add for, I don't know, Chinese New Year, a special event, we just do it. So we don't need to ask anyone for anything. So, and this is really, I mean, we did a long discussion, and we try to figure out the pros and cons, and at the end we decided not to do so because it's really tough. It might be also easy, there are also smaller IPs, but what is the effect of a smaller IP? Is there any effect? So do you want to have, I don't know, something small? There is no effect, because you want to reach out to the fan base, and you want people to say, hey, it's Tom and Jerry. Of course I will download, I will try it. It's Tom and Jerry, I know it. So when you see the banner or the video trailer. So, but that makes it really tough.
Okay. Yeah. Is it common for licensors to give money to developers so that some studio would develop a game based on their IP?
Then they must be very desperate, and that must be a very small IP, I would say. So, and then you really don't want to do it. So, I wouldn't.
Do you know a story? Again about Disney. I'm a fan of this Inside Out cartoon, and they have a match-free game based on that. Very beautiful. Do you know? So, what's the story behind such games? Developers trying to find Disney and make a deal, or like seriously?
It really depends. Again, it depends on the approach and the expectations of the developer. If it's a smaller developer, so then they might say, hey, it's a work for hire.
I mean, if I was Disney, I would probably, instead of having all different kind developers pitching to me, I would prefer, to look for them myself and pick myself.
Yeah, but this is a focus thing. They say it's not our focus. We don't want to enter the gaming business. We can give our IP to 5 different developers, and if you count all together,
who makes it better, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's also something what's really tough.
Is there a platform that is that suits better for having an IP based game, mobile or console or online, PC, Steam, whatever?
Mobile for sure, because
why?
Because mobile has way bigger reach, especially to casual players. So if you have, for instance, as far as I remember, Breaking Bad is coming out. Imagine how many people can you reach out on mobile and how many players can you reach out on console. So
well, console definitely, yeah. But what about computers and PC online?
Yeah, I mean, PCs are still, it's not dying, it's stable, but it's also not growing that heavily. And mobile is something everyone has in their pocket. So it's way easier for you to make more revenues on mobile than on PC. So that's why PC makes definitely much more sense, even if it's more competitive. But if you own IP, you can get easier users to the game, so reduce your cost, CPI costs.
All right. How do you think, how should it be balanced to keep the fans and bring the new audience? How to keep the balance between fans that love this exact IP and at the same time when you go on mobile you would really love to reach more people than just know the IP?
Yeah, this is a very tough question. You see, I scratch my neck.
Is it a special sign?
Yeah, it's a special sign for, wow, how can I answer that? But to be honest, this is exactly the thing what people are trying. Like, how can I make it? For instance, imagine you're using, the whole world knows zombie movies, right? So now when you take Walking Dead, there is a fan base, yes, for sure, but there are still people out there, they know the zombie genre, and somehow if you combine it cool with a strategy, then you can reach out to strategy game players, because you know that the strategy game players, they are making almost 70% of the top crossing charts when it comes to games. It's strategy games. So then you can combine it somehow. So and it's really important when you show your video trailers for user acquisition or your banners, you need to show the aspects to the audiences. Like if you show city building in some of the banners and some others you show directly and only the zombies, and on another one again the Walking Dead IP, then you can reach out to all these players. So if you just focus on the IP only, then you will only reach out to the fans, and the fans you can reach out with a Facebook post, right?
Right. Do you see a zombie out there today?
Yeah, I saw it.
Scary as hell.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Walking Dead, but it wasn't.
Exactly. I think Kefir, it's a Russia-based studio. They announced their new game coming, and it will have zombies.
Okay, cool.
That's what I think, at least.